everybody, and welcome to our Women's World Cup special here on Boston 25. Tom Lydon with you. Happy to be joined tonight by two guys who know a lot about the game of soccer. Real treat for us to have them with us. We're going to start with Jason Lowe, head coach of the women's soccer team at Boston College. He just joined the Eagles staff in January, spent the last 5 years at Wake Forest. In that time, the Demon Deacons went to the NCAA tournament twice, including a trip to the Sweet 16 last season. Prior to that, Jason was an assistant coach at Alabama for 5 years, also some time at Emory. All of this after attending Wake Forest and playing goalkeeper in the 90s. And to Jason's left, another goalkeeper, Brad Knighton from the New England Revolution. Brad has joined us before on the Boston 25 set. Glad to have him back. He's played in Major League Soccer since 2007, currently in his 9th year overall with the Revs. He also has spent some time in Philadelphia and Vancouver. Brad played collegiately at UNC Wilmington. It's great to have both of you here. And we're in, a week now to the Women's World Cup competition. And what's been your big takeaway from what we've seen in France so far?
My big take is how many competitive teams there are, how many teams actually have a real chance of winning the Cup. Each year it gets, I think the numbers grow, greater and greater of teams who can actually win the whole thing.
And what we see, Brad, is that the United States team just consistently seems to get better and better, and it's just a matter of reloading, and they're obviously focused after what happened in the 2016 Olympics.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way they started out with the bang here in the World Cup, opening up with a 13-0 win, was something spectacular, and like you said, it's like a fine wine. It gets better with age, and why not be it in France as it is?
All right, well, we're getting set for the U.S. team to take on Chile today, but let's take a look at the standings in Group F entering today's action. Sweden and Thailand squaring off right now. Sweden beat Chile 2-0 Monday afternoon, and as Brad just referenced, a 13-0 win for the U.S. against Thailand. Goal differential, a big factor as you look to advance, and I want to get your thoughts, because I have a couple opinions, on the U.S. piling it on against the Thais. A lot of criticism they received in the wake of that win, 13 goals. Nuts. You never see it in a match. What's your takeaway based on what they did and how they let that game play out?
Well, I think that, as long as goal differential is the first tiebreaker, that's the way that they have to approach it. You never know what's going to happen in the future games. I think there's two debates that go on. It was one sort of the celebration of the whole thing, and then the other was the actual goal scoring. As far as the goal scoring, that's what they've been training for and what they've been playing for, and it's kind of like a slam dunk. It's still only 3 points. I mean, it's going to only be 2 points. When you dunk on somebody, it's only 3 points, so they still have a lot more to do.
Brad, do they look at Thailand during that match and say, hey, this team might get killed by the other two squads in the pool as well, so we better pile on these goals because you just never know how much Thailand might surrender?
Right. I completely agree. When there's goal differential a factor in a major tournament, running the score up, there really isn't a problem with that, I don't see. The only problem I had, like they had mentioned, is that the celebration after 10 goals. I think you be very professional about the performance you put out there, and yes, you're going to score goals, but do it in a professional manner. At the end of the game, you saw some of the women consoling the other Thai players, and which I thought was a great gesture. But I think the way they handled themselves between goals maybe 9 through 13, it could have been handled a little bit better.
Yeah, it was a little different just because you had Alex scoring her 4th and then Alex scoring her 5th, and that tied the record for most goals in a World Cup match. So, that added a different dynamic to it, but, live and learn. What I liked about it is that maybe there were some women who had not performed at this level yet. So, you get the butterflies out. You get them finding the back of the net, getting some confidence, because not everyone's going to be as challenged as Thailand was to match up against the U.S.
Yeah, absolutely. And the biggest thing for me was the bench, right? So, seeing the bench celebrate, whether it was goal 10, 11, 12, 13, you have superstars on the bench, that are completely unified. Carly Lloyd's coming off the bench to score a goal, right? Which in 15, she's our starter and our star. So seeing how unified that group is was a positive I took out of that, because if you have a group that's that unified, remember back in 07, when it was a little bit more about me than we on the team. This seems like a team that's pretty much about the group, and so that was the encouraging part I took from the celebrations towards the end, is seeing that bench all unified together.
All right, well, it has set the stage for today's match. You're going to watch less than an hour from now right here on Fox, the U.S. team and Chile. First meeting between these two countries on the World Cup stage. They did play a pair of warm-up matches before last year's CONCACAF Women's Championship. The U.S. did win both of those, 3-0 and then 4-0. So, guys, I'll start with Brad. What's Chile looking to accomplish here today against a very heavy favorite in the United States?
I think get off on the score sheet. Like you said, the U.S. hasn't been scored on, and it's a very difficult defense to break down. So for Chile, the main focus is to get the ball in the back of the net and start hacking away at that goal differential. If they can manage to get a draw out of this game, that's definitely something for them to move forward going into the last game.
In this group stage, Jason, you see teams that are a bit overmatched, at least on paper.
Sure.
How do you handle that as a coach when you're going up against some of the best talent in the world? Take it to your level, maybe going up against some of the best talent in your conference.
Yeah, I think you have to look at it as an entire tournament and not just a single game. So, you have 3 games that you're guaranteed to play, and you want to maximize the points that you can get out of there. It's the top 2 group winners plus the best, 4 third-place teams, right? So there's a way to get into advance, and once you advance, then it's a new life. So I think as a coach or a manager, you got to just look at the whole picture and have a different strategy. Maybe you sit in a little bit more against the team, conserve a bit more energy, and just try and keep the score line close. Other ones you can open up a little bit and kind of get after it some more.
I want to get into the roster because we're still early enough in this tournament where they know some of the names, some of the names that are coming back, and you're familiar with them. Megan Rapinoe, Alex Morgan, of course, with her 5 goals. Tobin Heath, Carly Lloyd, you've discussed how her role this year is different than it's been in the past. But let's talk about the offense and some of the new talent that's been added to that mix, what you've seen from them, and how they can help build this team up and make it even better than it's been over the years.
Yeah, I think one person that jumped off for me is Rose Lavelle. People are going to really know her name, I think, by the end of the tournament. She can get in behind the back line. She's super fast. I actually probably underrated her a bit in college, and she's just grown as a player in the last few years. So seeing her and Lindsey Horan's another one who is really dynamic in our midfield that can score a lot of goals. Really, really good attacking player. So there's going to be some new names.
Brad, when you see new talent added to a team, what it does is it increases the competition on the practice field. And you've been a professional soccer player for so long. When you do have top-notch players on your team, in your dressing room, how does that affect the flow and the vibe of the team?
Yeah, I think it's great. It's a competitiveness throughout the team. It's not just strictly the veterans that are going to play the games. It's about the young kids coming up and what can they prove. For the U.S. here, like they had mentioned, that Rose is definitely going to take her chances throughout this tournament. She did well in the first game that she featured, and hopefully your young kids can get some valuable minutes here in these group stages, and they know they can be leaned upon come later in the groups at the end of the group stages and into the knockout rounds.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back on the other side, we're going to talk defense. We're going to talk goalkeeping. We're also going to talk about who's the biggest threat to the United States. Is it the host country? Is it France? They've owned this team of late. And what about Sweden? Sweden, once again, in their own group, a familiar foe, and the squad they're going to play next on Thursday. We're going to get into that when our special continues. Welcome back to the Boston 25 studios. Tom Lydon with you on our Women's World Cup preview show. Happy to be joined by Jason Lowe, the head coach at Boston College of their women's program, and Brad Knighton, a goalkeeper for the New England Revolution. And Brad, we cannot let you escape without addressing this. This is awesome. The Jedi Knighton bobblehead that was just given out a couple days ago. I mean, this is fantastic. This is going to be a great hit with the family.
Yeah, it is. It's huge. The kids love it.
You told me a little tidbit about this, too, that I didn't know.
Yeah, my son dropped it within the first 10 seconds of getting it out of the box, and looked like Mike Tyson got to Evander Holyfield's ear.
Oh, man, that's fantastic. But the lightsaber glows in the dark, so if you can get yourself one of these Jedi Knighton bobbleheads, I highly recommend it. We did get a chance to talk about the offense of the United States team, but let's talk about the defense. One of the big questions I have for you guys, both goalkeepers in your day and currently, they haven't been tested much. When you look at the fact that in their last 5 matches, they haven't given up a single goal. They've outscored their opponents 30-0. At a 6th game, it's 35-3. At what point do you get worried that the defense just isn't getting enough work?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of questions once we get under pressure, because you think about it, Becky Sauerbrunn didn't play in the first match. They were kind of holding her back from injury, so Julie Ertz dropped into the back line. If she comes back, we've been rotating our right back. Emily Sonnet and Kelly O'Hara have been in, so they really, even within all that, haven't had a set back four for a long time. So I think it'll be interesting to see when we're under some serious pressure how that group, kind of deals with that.
So they moved Julie Ertz from defense up to midfielder. What sort of effect does that have on any team when you move such a talent from the back line up a little bit?
Yeah, I think tactically, moving her towards towards their opposing goal is beneficial. You know, they're able to get more numbers in the box. They know she's going to lock things down defensively before it's even becoming an issue with the back four. So for me, bringing Julie Ertz into the midfield is a great asset for the U.S. and hopefully they can continue to push her forward into the attack and solidify the back line even more later stages in the tournament.
So Alyssa Nayer's taken over in net, and there's no Hope Solo, there's no Brianna Scurry. She's watched from these two women who have led the United States national team to such success over the years. What do we know about Alyssa? Because she certainly hasn't been tested all that much. And how confident do you feel about her in net when you start facing some of the stiffer competition?
Yeah, I think, I mean, she's a New England native, so she's going to be a familiar face to a lot of people in this area. You know, she's paid her dues. She's worked really hard. You know, let's look, she's training against the #1 attacking group every single day in training. She's done well in her professional career, and you know, I think it's just time for her to step up to the bigger stage. So I'm excited to see. She's got great range, good height, reads the game well, you know, communicates very well. So I'm looking forward to see her get tested.
Brad, you do it every day. What makes a goalkeeper successful?
Just doing the small things well. You know, like we'd mentioned, you're performing every day in training. There's always that competitive edge in training. You're going against the best attackers in the world in training every single day. So bringing that edge, bringing that bite to training and pushing yourself every single day is only going to maximize her potential, and hopefully we'll be able to see some of it in the later rounds of this tournament.
So the U.S. cruises against Thailand. They're heavy favorites today against Chile. They do have to play Sweden, which we'll get to, but biggest threats to this team, everyone's pointing to France. You know, France hasn't lost to the United States in the last 3 meetings. In fact, I think we've got a board that can show some of this. France has been dominant when you compare them to the U.S. In 2017, they win by 3. They played to a 1-1 draw in 2018, and just a couple of months ago in January, France wins again. Now they're on their home turf. Yeah. So they've got the energy, they've got the momentum, they've got the confidence. They're not afraid of that United States team. Is France or somebody else the team you fear most in this field?
I think France is going to be a tough test. I think Germany is a team that's going to slowly get better. Each tournament they get a little bit better as they get towards the later rounds. They have the talent to do it, and you know, a semi-local fan base as well. So Germany, aside from France, would be my other sort of dark horse to give us problems.
I would say those two as well as Sweden. Somehow Sweden seems to be in our group every single year there's a World Cup. So it'll be interesting to see how those two teams play against each other in the group stages, and who knows, they could meet down the line in the later rounds of the tournament. So it'll be an interesting game to keep your eye on. Maybe one team might change the way they play tactically because maybe down the road later they know they're going to see them later in the tournament. So besides those two teams, that would be my pick.
Well, it's worth making note of what's happened against Sweden the last few times they've played. There's some history with these two teams as well, going back to the 2011 World Cup where Sweden won. They played to a 0-0 draw 4 years ago, and then of course famously in the 2016 Olympics, Hope Solo explodes after they employ that defensive strategy, and Sweden wins that game in PKs 4-3. So again, they have confidence, but it doesn't seem as though they're going to keep the United States back from advancing. But anytime you give a team confidence, open up that door a little bit, that's tough, huh?
Yeah, I think you know, if I'm Sweden, you know, I'm not necessarily trying to match the goal differential, and I want to make sure that we're fresh and ready to play the U.S. and you know, given the history, there's no reason not to believe that they could, you know, if I'm Sweden, that we could, you know, get a result in that game.
I'm going to switch gears real quick because I want to get Brad's thoughts. Bruce Arena has joined the Revs. Haven't had a chance to talk to you or anybody else from your team yet about that. What sort of impact has he had already on your group?
He just brings a winning mentality. You know, he's come in and laid the foundation of kind of how he wants our team to set up, and I think the team's responded really well. You know, we've gone unbeaten since he's become named technical director and head coach, and you know, for us as a group moving forward, I think he's definitely the right guy for the job. He's a player's coach, and everyone seems to want to surround himself around him because he wins, and that's the most important thing, is winning championships, and so we're in line looking to do that now.
Well, I appreciate both of you making the trip and joining us here today. Insight was great. Hopefully we can do it again before this tournament is done. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Butch Stern's going to chat with Fox Sports' Lisa Byington, who is calling some of these World Cup matches for Fox, her take on today's pairing, and what's ahead for the United States women's national team. That and my profile of Hanson's Sam Mewis as our Women's World Cup pregame show continues right here on Boston 25.